Hello, everybody. Welcome to the beginning of the week. My name is Vanessa, and I am here with Rekla Learning Studios. And today is our deep dive. We have been talking about assessment for a little while, and I want to just remind you to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Courage to Teach Differently, and you will be able to get all of the notifications for when I add new videos. Usually the videos are on Mondays and Wednesdays. I do a deep dive on Mondays and a micro training on Wednesdays. So I hope that you can join me. So let's get into it. Today is called Signs of Deep Learning, What Evidence to Look For, right? So we're talking about assessment. We're talking about the easier way to create assessment without having to create worksheets and quizzes, and to decrease that level of stress for the students, to promote well-being, not only for the students, but the teachers as well. So one of the things that I have noticed is that sometimes teachers and trainers like myself get caught in this pattern of when classrooms feel stuck, when we're dealing with behavior or curriculum issues or learning issues, we tend to try to scramble or find a different strategy, a more complex strategy, a different framework. Maybe if I tried, a more sophisticated option, it would work. But really, what we want to do, instead of making things more complex, we want to get back to the basics. So that is what I am doing today. I am working on building the foundation, creating some basic teaching strategies that you can use multiple times throughout the day in a variety of situations with any topic, because it creates learning at a deeper level. So a calm circle discussion often does more than a multi-step protocol. So today we're going to be talking about circle discussion, circle time discussion. A single well-placed question can shift understanding more than an elaborate rubric. And the challenge isn't finding the next big strategy. It's returning to the simple practices we already know and giving them the space and consistency they need to work. So teachers, I find, don't usually struggle with effort, at least not on their part, and oftentimes not on the student's part. What they struggle with is certainty, understanding the learning on the student side, but being able to feel confident as a teacher that the lesson you have shared, that the activities you have done with the students has created a deeper understanding, not just a surface level where they can repeat what you just told them, or they can give you the definition of words, but a deeper understanding where they can connect that concept with other aspects of their learning. So here are some questions that we can think about. Did they really understand this, or just follow the steps? Was that engagement or compliance? Do I move forward, or do I slow down tomorrow? How do I pace this class? Why assessment can feel heavy. Sometimes we are looking for too much proof. We're collecting a lot of evidence, especially if you're using learning stations in your classroom. So we're collecting a lot of evidence. Some of it we can put in portfolios, some of it we can review, some of it maybe we can give back to the students, but we're collecting evidence to justify grades rather than understanding thinking. So we need to step back and realize that when we are doing assessments, we want to be looking for their understanding of the process, the whole picture, right? Where does what they're learning fit in? Or sometimes we're thinking that there is too little going on. So we focus on the correct answer. Yay, they repeated it exactly the way I wanted. I can move forward. They understand it. Uh-oh, not quite. Because just because they could repeat something that they have memorized doesn't necessarily mean they understand the process. So keep in mind that assessment should inform tomorrow's teaching, not judge today's students. So let's look at a calmer approach to assessment. It is more of information for teachers, right? We're changing our mindset about assessment. Assessment exists to guide instruction. We're not looking for grades. We're not looking for ranking, who knows the most, who knows the least. We're looking for instructions. How do we as teachers proceed based on what the students have shown me? Evidence lives daily. So learning reveals itself naturally inside conversations, inside your learning stations, inside the work that you're doing. And teachers need to become listeners, right? This is what I talk about a lot. You are facilitators, guiders, listeners, guides, and listeners. Teachers' role shifts from the evaluator to the observer. This approach reduces pressure for both the students and the teachers. Honestly, when I'm a teacher, if I feel like, oh, I'm giving them a quiz, and if they don't all get good grades, it's going to reflect on me as a teacher. Oh, that's so stressful, right? So assessment is not about judging the teacher or judging the student. It's about putting together the next steps. Where can I go from here with my students? Can I move forward to the next concept? Do they have the foundation? Do I need to come back, fill in some gaps, right? So that's what we're looking for. So let's talk a little bit about surface learning versus deep learning. That's what, when we talk about rote memorization, when we're talking about repeating words, when we're talking about copying something that is written on the board or filling in blanks, those are surface level learning. And yes, they are learning, but in a 21st century education, we need them to go deeper, right? Surface learning, it looks successful, but lacks sustainability, durability, it lacks transfer because the students aren't connecting it to anything else they learn. So what is deep learning then? Well, deep learning is students being able to explain their thinking in their own words, not just reading something that they have in their textbook. It's making connections across subjects, across concepts, across theories, right? And it's revising and refining the idea and asking clarifying questions. This is where circle time discussions throughout the learning process, not just at the beginning or the end, but during, in the middle. This is where those, as a facilitator, those clarifying questions can really support the students to help them make those connections. So deep learning may appear messy initially, of course, because it's conversation and we don't exactly know what's going to be talked about or where the students are at. And it's a little bit scary at first. But as a teacher, if we approach these discussions as if we are wanting to understand more about our students instead of, did they get everything I needed to share with them? Did they, do we need to assess them and grade them? No, we want deeper learning to be genuine understanding. So where does deep learning show up? It shows up by slowing down the pace, giving students pause and opportunity to think. It's a bit messier, right? It's not just handing out a worksheet, filling in the blanks. It's going to use materials. It's going to have discussions. We're going to have to get up and walk around and share with each other. And there's some uncertainty there. We want to have papers with corrections. We're not looking for perfection here. And incomplete at first, right? Initially, explanations are weak, especially when this is a new concept for your classroom. Students will struggle to critically think about what they're learning, but they can do it with practice. That's the exciting part. So you will see them grow as you implement this strategy in your classroom so that their explanations become clearer and deeper, and the conversations and the questions they begin to ask are really in depth. So strategy one, how do we implement this deeper learning concept? So like I said, we're going to talk about circle time as evidence, where students share, they give their reasoning visibly. The teacher is going to gather all of that information to help them support tomorrow's lessons. And so that planning is responsive. This simple structure transforms talk into formative data, right? So things that you can share with the parents, things that you can share the data with the administration so that you can show that your students are learning. This is not really about sharing what I like, what I don't like. This is about thinking through the process out loud. Circle time isn't about taking turns and showing work. It's a structured opportunity to make reasoning visible through dialogue. When students explain their thinking to peers, they clarify their own understanding, and you gain invaluable insight into what's truly happening in their mind. So really, really important. So what do students actually do in this circle time discussion? And again, this can be done as early as pre-K and K all the way up to grade 12. So first, they're going to explain what they're thinking. Students articulate their current understanding or answer. Then they're going to describe how they know. They're going to walk through the reasoning that led them there. Third, they're going to share why it makes sense. They're going to connect their thinking to prior knowledge or patterns. And then lastly, they're going to respond to their peers' ideas. So the peers need to be listening. They need to be asking questions. They need to be responding to what their peer is saying. And then there's a conversation that grows from this. What teachers are listening for. Here, your role during circle time is to notice patterns, not to drive the conversation, not to control the conversation, but to notice patterns in how students think and talk about their learning. So are they using reasoning words? Because, so, if, then, since, right? Are they connecting the learning from today with yesterday or last week or a month ago? Have they done some revision? So we can use the before and after. That one is a great one. If you use reflection walls and you have the before and after, this revised thinking activity is really easy to do because the students can look at where they were at the beginning of the lesson. Now we're in the middle. We've done some work. We've done some research. We've done some discussion. Now we have a new understanding. So are they willing to change their minds and refine their expectations? And then students build on classmates' ideas. So are they connecting? Are they listening to the other students and connecting what they're thinking with what the other students are thinking? So evidence and planning from circle time is really easy because we can prepare our lesson for tomorrow based on what we hear today. So we get growing clarity and expectations. We have more specific, precise language, replacing vague descriptions, so we know exactly where they're at. We can see peer-to-peer clarification. So if one student has a very concrete understanding, can they explain that to their fellow student who is not quite as clear, right? Students are catching their own errors through verbalization. And then the next day's lesson will emerge from what you heard today. So planning questions, you can ask yourself, who needs more time on this concept? What misconception appeared across multiple students? Who is ready to extend this thinking? So these questions are what's going to guide you with your station learning, right? So who needs more information, more time? Then you can go back to the basics in that station. What misconceptions appeared? So you can do like a station where they have this answer is false. How do you make it true, right? That's a great one. That's a fun one. And then who is ready to extend? So this would be a more extended station where the students can go and take the next step in this concept or this topic. And what conversation should we continue tomorrow? All right, the second strategy is concept mapping, snapshots of thinking. This is also a really visual way. This is a great submission for portfolios. So to show the progress of the students' learning, the process from beginning to end. So you could do a concept map before you do your lecture, before you do your station learning with each student, and then you can do a concept map afterwards and see how many more connections they can make, right, in this particular topic. As concept maps are not final products to be graded for neatness or completeness. They're evolving records of how students organize and connect ideas. What students do with concept maps, they will organize their ideas visually so you can actually see where the connections are for them. They can show relationships, so they're drawing connecting lines with labels, helping you to see how they're making those connections. And then you can always, as the lesson progresses, ask them to revise their concept map. Add something, remove something. Maybe they wrote something that they thought was connected before the lesson. Now they realize, oh, that's not really connected to that, is it? And they can erase. So we encourage students to revisit and revise their maps across several days or weeks. This concept map, especially if you're doing a 2 or 3 week or a phenomenon-based lesson where it extends for 3 or 4 weeks, you can use your reflection wall and start with an initial concept map and have them either go back up and add as it goes on or have them create a new one as you go on. So it's a great way to help the students see those connections. What are teachers going to notice? As you review the students' maps, you can focus on quality of connections rather than quantity. We're not looking for how many circles we can add to the concept map, but how strong those connections are. Are they isolated? Are they connected? Are the ideas floating separately? Are they integrated? Are they surface connections versus meaningful connections? Sometimes students like to take the easy way out, right? They will quickly add 3 or 4 circles and say, teacher, I'm done. And that's okay. That is a surface level connection. And then you can encourage them to think more deeply. And then, of course, the map will show growing complexity, deeper understanding. How do we use this for evidence and planning? So the evidence we will notice is the new connections that are added, the decrease in the isolated or disconnected ideas. Remember, erasing is okay. We're not looking for a perfect concept map. We have clearer, more specific labels on the links, and we have cross connections between previously separate clusters. These changes signal deepening conceptual understanding. So the planning questions that we can use to either adapt our stations or move forward with a new lesson is: what core concepts need revisited? Where is understanding fragile or incomplete? How should I group students for tomorrow's work? And which students need scaffolding versus extension? Again, all of these questions help to drive your stations and the learning that they do the next day. So how this changes assessment pressure. When you know what to look for during learning, assessment becomes less about proving and more about noticing. So we want you as a teacher to assess with observation through facilitation and guidance, so that assessment becomes calmer. You don't have the anxiety of whether they're going to perform well or whether you've done enough, right? You're gathering the evidence naturally through your daily interactions, your conversations. Testing is going to decrease because when you know where the students are through those conversations, you don't have to pass out daily worksheets or weekly quizzes, right? You can move forward in your lessons with confidence, knowing that they are understanding at a foundational level and building from there. And then, of course, pacing becomes responsive. So tomorrow's lesson reflects on the gaps that the students had today, and you can move forward with confidence, like I said. So what did we cover today? We covered today something called deeper learning. What it looks like: it's slower, a little bit messier. We're not looking for perfection. And it shows up in language, in self-correction, and in evolving ideas. Why correct answers aren't enough, right? Why, when we give them a worksheet and they get 100 and we say, great, let's move forward, why that's not enough? Because surface learning or surface compliance differs from genuine understanding. Reasoning reveals the difference. And then 2 practical strategies we covered was circle time discussions and concept mapping. So I will go ahead and post a companion blog that extends these ideas with additional strategies and research. It will show 3 more strategies that you can use to provide deeper learning for your students. So check out my blog on my website, www.reclalearningstudios.com. What are the practicing the ideas step by step? The next steps are understanding these strategies is one thing, right? It might be easy. You can say, yeah, I heard about circle time. I've heard about concept mapping. But actually building up the confidence and the habit to use these strategies is another step altogether. So this way of planning from evidence, listening carefully, noticing patterns, adjusting instruction responsively is explored more deeply inside our RECLA online courses. So for teachers who want structured, supportive practice implementing Finnish-aligned pedagogy in their classroom, you can go to our self-paced online courses and learn more about these things. So closing reflection, I love to hear your comments. I want this to be a global conversation. Tomorrow, what might you listen for instead of passing out and looking at grades and rote memory? Consider one conversation, maybe one work example, one student question where you'll pause to notice the thinking beneath the answer. That single shift from measuring correctness to understanding reasoning changes everything. Thank you so much for coming today. May your teaching be calm, your noticing be clear, and your students' learning be deep. For more resources and support, please do visit reclalearningstudios.com. Thank you so much. Have a great day.